Tim Allen, or as I prefer to think of him, Tim the Two-Man Taylor. Icon of the 90s and the most watched program on television at its peak till a group of pals came along and knocked it off the top spot. But one thing that Home Improvement always had over Friends? A goddamn race team. That's right, this is the story of how the biggest TV show in the world at the time had its own Saleen race car. Home Improvement was a show about, well, home improvement, featuring a show within a show called Tool Time, where Tim frequently made things, well, worse than they already were. Sounds pretty familiar. The premise of the show was simple, a sitcom revolving around Tim and his family, the challenges of day-to-day life, raising kids, and usually some kind of wholesome message to take home by the end. Being honest, it's totally a comfort blanket for me. I have watched this show since I was no age at all, and recently I've been rewatching it on Disney Plus, which is kind of the reason for the video. But Tim, being the car guy he is, managed to wangle a ton of car references and scenes into the show, which is nice because usually us car guys don't get a wholesome, relatable TV show. Tim's love for cars, not just in the show, wasn't just a passing hobby. Much like his very dear real-life friend Jay Leno, who had a cameo in the show, Tim's life revolved around cars both on and off-screen, amassing his own hell of a collection. Tim's collection was much more geared towards modified cars though, rather than Jay's pristine cars. Kind of a bit more like me. Another man, slightly earlier than this, was also making waves in the car scene. In 1983, Steve Saleen, a former professional racing driver and engineer, founded Saleen Automotive in Irvine, California. The first Saleen production car, a modified Mustang, debuted a year later in 1984. Saleen took the Mustang's base and upgraded basically everything from the engine to the suspension and, more often than not, bodywork, and quickly began to make a name for themselves on the racing scene. Saleen's race team took a slew of victories across the states, which is a fitting advertisement for any car tuner really. No stranger to these Saleen Mustangs, Tim Allen and Steve Saleen met one evening in Hermosa Beach in California, where Tim was performing at a comedy club. After the show, the comedian test drove two of the cars that Steve had brought along for an audition. The two became close friends and in 1985, they formed the Saleen Allen Speed Lab team, also known as RRR, a reference to his grunts on the show, presumably. Fun, unrelated fact about Saleen, they were responsible for some of the assembly of the Ford GT in 2005. Ford actually commissioned them to do partial assembly and paint. I didn't know that until I started researching this video. Naturally enough, Tim then also joined forces with Saleen's racing team, and even became part of the team's racing efforts as a driver. He wasn't just showing up for a photo op to score some publicity, Tim was genuinely invested in the team. He even co-raced at the Le Mans 24 Hours in the Saleen, the Mustang's first race there in over 30 years at the time. And invested is a good turn of phrase because we turn our eyes, as always, to something that appeared in Gran Turismo 2. Predictable as ever. In 1999, Saleen had entered the American Le Mans series, a place where they would gain a lot of their brand recognition and fame, in a Mustang they dubbed the SR Widebody. Based on the then current SN95 Mustang, this was a bit of a mad body kit that then came with a plethora of performance options as well, and being a Saleen, it had to prove itself on the track. But if, like me, you actually know this car originally from Gran Turismo 2 or Midnight Club as a road version, you might have spied a logo on the bonnet, albeit very pixelated. Well, that logo was for none other than Home Improvement, as Tim had wangled away to get a sponsorship from the show on the car, giving even more publicity to both the brand and the show. The car ran with the logo for quite a few races, but with the show ending in 1999, it only got a few displays on the SR. However, in Tim's 97 Le Mans entry, the logo was there too, and while info is scarce online, from what we can gather, the Saleens had the Home Improvement logo for as long as Tim was involved. Home Improvement was Tim's most famous role before, becoming Santa Claus and a talking toy, and until his latest show was his main outlet for making his love for cars accessible to the average watcher. But the partnership through Saleen showed to the world just how passionate he was about cars and the real world, and it wasn't just something put on for the show. Thanks to his involvement, the Saleen racing team gained even more attention, at probably the perfect time to do it. Sadly, Saleen is a little bit of a shell of its former self at the minute, probably due to some sketchy business deals, but the legacy of what they did to the Ford Mustang will always live on. I've been Tomo. This has been a short 427 Motorsports history snippet. Thanks very much for watching, and good luck.